Hello, and welcome back to the Black Techies podcast. I'm your host, Herbert Seward. This is our very first episode of the new year. It took us a minute, but we back in here. Thank you guys for following us for the previous year. I'm your host again, Herbert L. Seward III, aka Black Tony Stark, aka I Love Barbecue. And I'm joined by my lovely guest today, one of my compadres and part of the Black Techies crew, Miss Leslie Moore. Welcome back.
Welcome back. New year, new foolishment in tech.
Yeah, shenanigans. Shenanigans are on deck. Um, man, I know we got a couple of members that are missing. Our boy Bear Grylls, Roberto Joseph, our host emeritus Dave Matthews. They may or may not be in. Um, but if they are in the show, we'll patch them in. But yeah, man, a lot of stuff has happened, since the last episode we had near the end of the new year to the beginning of the new year. Um, I mean, where to start? What can you say? I mean, there's just the year ended really on one of those things where it's like, all right, this what kind of chicanery is this? What's going on? What's hot? Is this what's hot in the streets? But
Right?
yeah,
Goodness
man,
gracious.
and we're not going to get into all the political stuff and everything that happened at the end of the year. Um, we have plenty of time to talk about that. As the new year rolls along. Um, but what I really wanted to get into today, and we're going to talk about this later on in the podcast, um, is the role of technology and closing the wealth gap. And this is a pretty layered conversation,
Yeah.
um, but we're reserving that to for closer to later on in the show, in the podcast. But um, to start out on a lighter note, Leslie, what are some things in the news recently that have really caught your eyes tech wise?
Ooh, where do I begin? Well, let's start with E3. The big three won't be at E3.
Yeah,
Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo will be at E3. That's huge. CES was last month, and I saw I had a friend that went. She saw a AI driven tractor. That's a thing. Didn't know. And how about all the layoffs as of late? The latest I've
oh
heard that's
man,
coming down the pipe is PayPal.
yeah, dude. As somebody um, that works in an unspecified capacity for Amazon, I'm not going to mention what capacity I work for those guys in, but um, essentially, layoffs hit there, and layoffs were horrible, meaning that there were like entire divisions of places like AWS folks, departments that got zipped and the whole nine. So it's like, yeah, it's been kind of touchy. Um, I mean, it's one of those things where it's kind of like, yeah, really really feel bad, but at the same time, you're like, damn, okay, I'm glad that's not me.
What?
That's yeah, for real. Because I mean, I know me personally, um, as somebody that's been in the tech industry for going on a little over 25 years now,
Mhm.
um, in this area, in the DC metro area, I've always been very very considerate and very blessed about the fact that this area for information technology professionals has been one that is very fruitful. In other words, you get off of a contract. There's so much work to be had here because it's the seat of the government. You can be on a contract the next day, and it's quite. I mean, it's even better if you've got like a real um, another check mark to put by your name, like a clearance, for example,
Oh yeah.
or yeah, stuff like that. I mean, it really puts things in perspective, as somebody that works in the industry and as somebody that um, sometimes looks out of the industry and we kind of take things for granted in terms of longevity and stability and the availability of employment. Um, and that's something that we'll probably talk about a little bit later on when we talk about um, what's happening, how technology in general can help, um, if or can help close the wealth gap for African Americans. Um, but yeah, man, I'm still kind of blown about E3. Even though we're kind of, we already kind of knew that was coming down the pike. We knew um, that Sony and those guys won't be, it was heading toward that direction where they wouldn't be, constant contributors at E3. And
Well,
they're at
I think that started with the pandemic though. That just kind of took away like, look, we can do our own events. Why do we have to keep participating in a major event? We can just spend the same money and do it ourselves. That
yeah,
started that. And
yeah,
that's also that's how I kind of feel about the layoffs and the shifts in the industry. It's like, okay, you couldn't have people coming into the office, so you set up remote positions. But people were working these remote positions wherever they were remotely. So it's a whole lot of we spent a whole lot of money to get things going, and now we're trying to recoup that money because people are still suffering from a pandemic.
yeah,
So
yeah. And this is the truth. I think this is something that just like any other industry, um, it's affected the tech industry, consumer technology, um, you know, and beyond. So
right.
you're going to kind of um, you won't feel uh, you won't really feel the brunt of things
Hmm.
until you actually see it. And I mean, in certain places in the country, you kind of have a little bit more insulation to it, because of the market. Like for example, DC, the Atlanta metro area, the Dallas metroplex, out west in Silicon Valley, every place else where
Yeah.
there's not as much of a buffer. Yeah, you're up against it, and it's like, how's that going? What how you have to plan contingencies because of it. But I mean, with those guys not being at E3, what do you think you're going to see? What are some
Well,
things, immediate things that come to mind for you?
I mean, with them not being E3, I guess if you are a specific console user, you can only focus on that one event instead of, E3 always had that beautiful scheduling conflict sometimes where games you would want to see are on a panel that's overtaken. Like you might want to go to an indie game panel, but you don't want to miss what Sony doing. So it might be a better shot for the smaller guys to step up and have a better platform because no one's overshadowed with the other events. So like the smaller indie game development companies, this is their time to shine now for E3 if they can come across that. Also smaller tech companies. We don't know if the bigger tech companies are going to pull out just because the gaming giants pulled out. That's something else. So it's kind of a way to open the door a little bit.
Yeah, I can dig it. I think, I mean, me personally, I'm just really, I'm looking forward to uh, just seeing what that space also opens up for, for those type for indie developers. You know what I'm saying? Um, what it's going to offer, the opportunity is going to, offer the kind of, I don't want to say level the playing field because that's going to be kind of hard to do,
Yeah.
but just to add more variety to, the space as it relates to, um, just variety for consumers out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know one other thing that we're going to probably do a little bit more this year, during the course of the year, is take a more granular look at HBCUs in the tech space. Whether
Mm,
that's gaming, whether that's specifically having partnerships and contracts with specific areas of industry. I know just recently NASA um, really uh, they really kind of tossed us a bone here in terms of, I think there were like 13 or 14 schools, um, you know that really, I think there's $14 million worth of of partnerships and things that were offered to these schools with
Mhm.
government agencies, specifically with NASA. Um, right off the top of my head, and I'm actually looking for the documentation now. Right off the top of my head, North Carolina A&T, Morgan State, Morehouse, I believe Fort Valley State was involved in it.
Mhm.
There's about 8 to 10 HBCUs that were involved in this project, and um, it's dope stuff because you get these guys are actually going to be working hand in hand with NASA, to develop mission parameters to do specific mission oriented things that the agency wants. So um, those things are you know those things are pretty highlighted. And we just officially got hit with our first bot of the new
Ooh,
year.
first Twitch.
Come
Let's
on, man.
go Twitch bot. Good.
Come on. Come
Man,
on. Come on,
please.
Twitch. Get away
Hey,
from me.
make me a mod. Make me a mod. We
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
fine. Make me a mod.
I got you. I got you. Come on, Twitch, man. Y'all killing us, bro. Killing us. Look, man. Let me just say this for folks that frequent our Twitch channel. Um, Occasionally you'll see some really nonsensical stuff come across our stream and Twitch, in our chats and things of that nature. This is not us.
At all.
the I mean, these, we just got an advertisement, and I'm gonna show it just to show it. Okay. We literally just got an advertisement, during the course of this show, from an automated, from an automated bot in terms of advertising, since they see this on the platform as part of the show, whatever.
Hey, make me a mod.
Yes, I will definitely do that, Leslie, because I,
Thank
I, I
you.
hate I hate these suck.
Oh,
Whoever,
I love them.
yeah,
I love them.
yeah.
They're
I
part
mean,
of my streams.
yeah. Between those and the white nationalist folks that pop up on our stream every now and again because they see black in the title of the podcast. Um, yeah, that's Leslie. I'm gonna definitely let you handle that from here on in.
Thank you. That's all I ask.
But yeah, man. But we're gonna go ahead and take our first break here. Um, but I want folks to really think about what we are just talking about in terms of what it means that these guys won't be at E3. That's I mean, for the landscape, that's pretty huge.
It's
E3, you know,
it's massive for it because you got to think E3 is the show where you would see all your new games, all your new technology. Now you don't have to see. Now you don't have to. A lot of people who come specifically for those three may or may not come back. So that might be a revenue hit for real, for real.
yeah, exactly. We're going to take a little bit of a break, run an ad, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Yeah, baby, you know what time it is. Now let's get it started. Are you kidding me? Unreal!
While our HBCUs are mostly known for academic rigor, community, they also know how to turn up.
Does he have it? Yes, he does! And that might be the knockout punch.
A Black future happens all the time. It's built on a foundation of those who have paved the way. Trust your dream. The future is counting on it.
All right, and we are back. Big shout out again to AT&T for hooking us up with those spots, courtesy of our overlords at HBCU Digital Network. Thank you, boss. Appreciate it. Those spots were like, yeah, chef's kiss. But
Oh yeah, amazing.
but yeah, man, I think one of the things that we were talking about going into the end of the year, as it relates to technology and space, because I think we end the year with, Elon, the Dark Lord Elon Musk. taking over Twitter. Just in general, it's been kind of funny seeing how the world of blue stickers and check marks has kind of devolved since that's happened.
Oh my
Um,
goodness, Twitter has become almost Facebook-like, except it's funnier.
man, it's
It's funnier
hilarious.
on Twitter. I'm slowly backing away from my Facebook presence because my Twitter presence is hilarious. I can get away with a lot.
It's hilarious, man. I mean, between that, um, and that says a lot about and just to kind of tie in the technology that we tend to take for granted. That says a lot about the power of social media right now. Between things of that nature happening, um, you know, uh, just from a sports lens. I know for me, covering double and covering athletics, um, social media was at the forefront of the Jackson State, Deion Sanders
Mm.
tenure, and it still is. If anybody's been on, so follow Black Twitter and follow HBCU Twitter. For you know at the end of the year, going into the new year, um, that hasn't stopped. Shout out to uh, Deion Sanders' daughter for providing us more comedy as it relates to that.
Goodness
At
gracious.
least sister.
Between that and the Ed Reed
Oh, Ed
situation, I don't
Reed.
know what
Ed,
was funnier. Oh my
man, look.
goodness.
Let me. And I got it. Now that I got a little bit of a soundboard, I got to comment on this, and I'm going to go ahead and put up the disclaimer here. We haven't used the
Oop,
disclaimer
roll the
already.
banner.
Roll the banner. I'm about to roll the banner. Um, because this needs to be said. Because and we've been talking about this in our other spaces, man. Big shout out to the HBC nightly team. For the show. I'm part of a collective there, and we talk about this. Um, there we go, banner. And we cover more sports than anything, and we covered the both the Deion Sanders tenure at Jackson State and this debacle with Ed Reed, um, from start to finish. And I'll preface what I'm about to say since the banner's up by stating that Bethune-Cookman has some work to do in terms of you know how they interact with their students, their alumni, what the board of trustees does. They got a lot of work to do, and they have to earn the trust of that student body and um, their alumni. You know, now that that's out of the way, I'm gonna talk about Ed Reed, and I'm just making sure the banner's running. I'm gonna take the E3. I'm gonna take the E3 down because I want people to really understand what I'm saying here. Ed Reed, number one, is a Hall of Famer. I think everybody that's on Twitter that's been just swinging from whatever vine following him um, understands. Yes, we love him. I loved watching Ed Reed play when he was in Baltimore. I loved it too, even as a Washington Commanders fan. However, Ed Reed was and is no longer a player. Ed Reed, how can I put this delicately? I'm trying to keep it kosher for the first show of the new year.
Understandable.
Ed Reed is a grown man, and he is old enough and wise enough to understand what it means to be a professional. And I want people to really understand what I'm about to say here. If myself or Leslie got hired for a job, high profile job, being the face of a company, a tech company, and before the ink was dry on the contract, we go to a location and we kirk out on the bosses. What do you think's going to happen?
Peacefully or forcefully?
Both.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
and this, and I want to say this because I don't, first I don't fault Ed Reed for pointing things out that are wrong. I think that I think everybody can agree that anybody that's familiar with the situation of Bethune-Cookman knows that that administration has been on some other stuff for a long time, even before Ed Reed was even thought about. I think that's been in the realm of public opinion. But the reason why Ed Reed kirking out on social media and just tossing out whatever HBCU trope he could is damaging is the fact that people that follow Ed Reed, people that have no clue or care about what HBCUs are or what they deal with or what they have dealt with or what they continue to deal with, take that narrative and sprint with it. And I think that's the problem that a lot of people that have issues with Ed Reed, since, and let me clarify this, he's come out and apologized about, his professionalism, whatever, and I'll take that at face value. I think Ed Reed's, a good dude, period. You know, um, and he's not a bad dude. He's not anti-HBCU. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that professionalism or lack thereof is going to win you or lose you jobs.
Facts.
Period. Doesn't matter if you're a Hall of Famer. Doesn't matter if you're a carrot farmer. If you are interacting with somebody that you're trying to do business with, whether being an employee, being a business partner, there's a modicum of professionalism that you have to engage people with. Oh, host emeritus is here. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Well, hello there.
Hey, I thought I'd drop by. I had to get something to eat before I got on. But here,
Hey, I feel your
back
pain, bro.
again.
I'm getting something to eat after the podcast.
So
Before
like
before-
this is they don't sponsor us or anything. But if you're in anywhere in Northern Virginia, go down to Manassas, go to a place called Scrimp Shack. Not Shrimp Shack, Scrimp Shack.
Oh, you have me a
It's amazing.
script.
Dave, you know that's
Yeah.
like Dave, you know my house is literally right around the corner from
You
the
see
place.
this? This is
Yes, sir.
I don't
That
know. I don't know what's in here. I know it's catfish, but
That
they
is my-
put something else in here because, man,
That is my lunch, Dave. That is my lunchtime fix. Like at least 2 or 3 days a week because my house is literally right around the corner from Scrimp Shack.
oh man,
So yeah,
I'm
I
kind of
think,
glad I'm not around the corner. From it.
see now before this HBCU Hoops weekly space, I'm gonna have to go out to Scrimp Shack and get something to eat. Thanks, I appreciate that. But yeah, we were just talking about we kind of segued into social media and how it's been a driving factor for certain events going into the new year, at the end of the new year, and we were using the spectacle of Deion Sanders and Ed Reed as an example.
Yeah.
And I was, like you said, I got the banner up. So so we don't lose any advertised dollars or anything like that. But I was explaining that professionalism is what got Ed Reed out of the job. Not the fact that Bethune-Cookman is kind of slacking at what they're doing as an admin, which I happen to agree with, by the way. Like, I mean, yeah, it's been kind of rough watching, those guys take slugs and bullets, in the court of public opinion. But I think it's one of those things where you got to know who how to deal with people, and the thing that bothered me about that whole thing was like, yeah, he got to the campus and he was pissed off about his office not being clean. Okay, I get it. But for somebody that doesn't use social media, first place he runs is to what, Instagram? And not only does he post, but what he posted in relation to, you know, the school and the administration before he even had a contract. That's what I couldn't. That's what I and in our space, we often talk with coaches that get jobs and aren't officially on the job, but they come to campus anyway, and they lay the groundwork for what the work they got to do, whether it's recruiting or what have you. But this was just kind of over the top, man. It was just like, yo, he's really going in, and I think what me and Leslie were talking about specific weren't the people that were necessarily agreeing with him, but folks that were introduced to HBCUs into the space by this spectacle. People that probably didn't care about or follow HBCUs at any point in time. Prior to Ed Reed hopping on IG and blasting, Bethune-Cookman's administration. So, it just rubbed me the wrong way. And I think a lot of people in HBCU media were like, yo, yeah, a lot of y'all don't know what the hell y'all talking about. So, and
I mean,
you're looking for those PWI benefits at HBCU.
Yeah, and it's like,
just saying.
I mean, we've heard everything from people just generalize all HBCUs by what's happened at Bethune to every HBCU has X, Y, and Z problems. Like, first of all, man, Bethune, going to school at Bethune ain't the same as going to school at A&T or Philander Smith or Howard or Alabama State or any place else for that matter. Every school is different. Every school has their own, secondary missions, to the HBCU mission that they got to accomplish. And, Bethune is a private institution, so there's just so many layers of this, and I don't want to necessarily spend the entire space or segment, rehashing Ed Reed. I promised myself that I would just kind of keep it succinct about this dude.
I'll just say one thing there, and then we can go on to the next topic if you want. So I mean, I don't know exactly what you all talked about, but as far as like Ed Reed and Dion, I'll say at least for one, like I really liked what Deion Sanders did at Jackson State. Like he broadened the appeal of HBCUs. He rose he raised the status of what HBCUs are and what we do and why we're important, right? And a lot of people started taking us a lot more seriously after he became the head coach at Jackson. I actively rooted for them, right? I went to TSU, right? We played against them. we played against. I mean, when I mean not root for their team to win necessarily, but I rooted for for him to do well, so that what's the phrase? Rising tide raises all boats, whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
so like,
yeah.
And so like, I'm not necessarily against celebrity head coaches or whatever. I mean, I can't say anything. TSU has Eddie George, so I can't really say anything. But I think that can be a benefit if one, you got the right person, right? You can't just do any old head coach. It doesn't matter what kind of celebrity they are. And two, the administration. I think you said that, you've tweeted about this many times, about how the administration has to be behind all of this, right? Especially when it comes to like the band and stuff like that, right? If you don't have that support, then you do run into issues. But like you said, like what happened at Bethune-Cookman and Ed Reed isn't the same as what happens at other HBCUs. I can tell you right now, North Carolina A&T State University is one of the best run HBCUs I've ever been at. Yes, I'm somewhat biased because I am an Aggie, but
Well,
but
I'll say
just
this. Yeah, I'll say this, man, and this is full disclosure for folks that are listening. You know, your boy is going back to school, and A&T is one of the finalists. So it's A&T, Norfolk State. I wanted to go back to my alma mater, Alabama State, but I'm looking at the online programs there, and there's just but yeah, I just wanted to add that in there, man. But yeah, I hear you, dude. And I mean, and let me say this about Dion. You know, I agree with you wholeheartedly in terms of, you know, what he did while he was at Jackson State in terms of the program and in terms of bringing visibility there. Was, you know, I mean, only he could have did it because, you know, of the cachet he has. I think people, you know, kind of take that for granted though, because, you know, I mean, and me being in the, you know, in that other athletic sports space, I see a lot of folks are like, well, HBCUs weren't this or weren't that before Dion. Like, dude, HBCU football and basketball and culture, you know, have been, you know, front and center before Deion Sanders was even thought about for a job. And sometimes, man, we kind of lose sight of that, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think just to kind of bring a close to the Ed Reed and celebrity football coaches talk as it relates to social media. Social media was a real driving force behind. I am so mad you were eating that Scrum Shack right from your podcast too.
Hey, I'm hungry.
You see my face like
You got me feeding. See now I'm gonna have to see now, brother. Gonna have to.
let me stop my camera. There we go.
Man, I can't do that, man. But yeah, dude. You know, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, we talk about gatekeeping, you know, in terms of HBCU culture and visibility a lot in the space. And I think the only bad thing about these interactions that we see is that it brings, you know, it brings both sides of the coin. You have a lot of people that want to help HBCUs or really want to support. I don't want to say help because I think that kind of, you know, kind of sends the wrong message, but want to support HBCUs and see HBCUs flourish and excel. And then you have other people that come into the space because of their fandom for that particular person. And we've seen a lot of that at the end of the year and in the beginning of the year with these two incidents. And social media, you know, the platform, I mean, every platform is a driving factor for it. You know, like I said, I mean, it's like how you get fired on your day off, Greg. You know, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So, but what have you seen at the beginning of the year, tech-wise, Dave, that has really caught your eye?
Oh well, it's more so the lack of it now. Is the death of Stadia. Uh, so like I mean, obviously you all know. Like I think it was January 18th or something like that. That's when Stadia officially, right? pour right now for Stadia, right? And I mean, the thing is, I kind of hate the fact that they you know had to shut down. I mean, it's Google, like they're known for killing stuff, right? But it I like what they were doing, and I just think they went about it the wrong way somewhat. Like if they would have had more of a Netflix or Game Pass type of you know subscription service, maybe it would have been a little bit more viable. And the technology behind it is still, I think, is still superior to what Microsoft and Nvidia are doing. Now, Nvidia is pretty good. I do like GeForce Now, but I mean with Stadia, I mean you had like if you think of the stuff that they could have done with that, right? You know, when it first came out, Google was saying, you know, what if you were watching someone play a game or they were streaming it, right? Maybe they're streaming it on YouTube, and then you could literally hop into the game, like click a button and then hop right into the game yourself, right? I mean, who else can do that? Like no one can do that except Google, and they kind of dropped the ball on it, and I kind of hate that it, you know, came to this way.
Well, I mean, I think it was pressure from outside competition. I mean, Amazon Luma's hanging in there because I mean, Amazon still has the same capabilities. Plus, they didn't.
Man,
I
They
haven't really heard of a lot about
didn't.
Luna, honestly.
yeah, nobody
It's still
has.
alive though. It's
Yeah,
still alive though.
for now.
I had friends who
Yeah,
had the Stadia equipment, like the box and everything. So they, I guess,
Yeah, I
if you
got it. I got
had
the
the
controller.
actual, they had the equipment too. But it's one of those cases where once you started seeing, have you seen what Game Pass is actually doing? I don't have a console. I have Game Pass, and I stream most
man.
of my stuff off that.
And
They
I
brought
love
back
I love Game Pass.
GoldenEye.
I ain't gonna lie.
Game Pass is nice, but
It is
I'm not.
nice.
Yeah, I'm not even going to front. I'm still a Shadow guy, and
No, I was actually looking at it yesterday.
man,
I was like, huh.
man, Shadow. I can't tell you how many times having Shadow has come in clutch, especially since I've been finicky about investing in a next gen console. Especially for a FIFA and Call of Duty guy like myself, that
Mhm.
if I'm if I want to play a PC game, and that's the biggest thing about having a virtualized platform like that. And I got to say, to me, it's one of the best iterations of that out on the market, and has been. It's just, um, it's finally getting the type of traction here stateside that it's supposed to.
Mhm.
You still have the challenge of being close or relatively close to data centers, though, for that platform. If you're in any of the flyover states, it's going to be kind of hard because you're, in those places, you're not, really close to those types of data centers. Um, but yeah, man, look, I mean, I got a little mini platform in the back right here, hooked up to my TV. Normal joint, just powered on, log in virtually to my game, and I'm gone. No, I don't have to. No special loadout. It's a run of the mill, Core i5, 8 to 16 gigabytes of memory, uh, you know, surplus government workstation. That's about yay big, and that's my console.
Oh,
And
did you know? Interesting thing I found out about Game Pass accidentally. They have cloud gaming within Game Pass if you have the Ultimate one.
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
Ultimate,
I've
yeah.
been playing Fable 2 and Fable 3, and they don't offer that no on Game Pass if you're not on the Ultimate.
yeah, man. But I think, like I said, I think it's something that we have to really um, pay attention to this year, just to see whether or not there are going to be any other projects. And I know, we've seen the march of handheld gaming.
That's what I was,
Um,
that was the next thing I was gonna say.
yeah,
Handheld gaming is you got the
yeah.
INEO,
Oh
the
my
GPD
God,
Win, the
there's,
Steam Deck,
there's,
obviously, right? Steam Deck
Oh
kind of
yeah,
man,
made it,
the Steam Deck is
man.
actually at a point where you can order it and get it in the same time period. They're finally
yeah,
caught up
Yeah.
on their orders.
exactly. And
And I've seen it and I've played it and
it's dope.
I'm tempted. Oh man, I'm tempted.
I
I was like,
gotta it's not compatible. I don't do a lot of shooters, so they don't haven't put too many RPGs. They've ported over a couple of RPGs. I'm just waiting until they get the rest of them.
Yeah,
But it's worth the money.
yeah. I'm not even gonna lie, man. You can find Steam Decks now on Facebook Marketplace. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but you
Because
could, yeah, because
people thought it was something else, and there you are. If you don't have
yeah,
a Steam account, it really don't do you no good.
this is very true, and I kind of have to chuckle at it a little bit because it's like, really, y'all just putting these Steam Decks out on Facebook Marketplace all willy nilly. You realize what y'all got? It's like, okay,
I mean, all
but
right. I mean, if you just play it, well, here's the thing. Like, if you just used it right as intended, I guess you could say, right. You just use Steam OS, like it's still pretty great. One of the things I like about it is it's like the Switch, where if you turn it off, it keeps where you're playing. Like it keeps the state of where you at, and then when you turn it back on, you can immediately resume from where you are. Right, you don't have to worry about reloading the game and all that kind of stuff. But like, you can do emulation. You can put Windows on there. You can put a whole another flavor of Linux on there if you really want to, right? Like you could.
yeah,
Someone put Mac OS on there. I think I want to say
I
someone
saw
did
it.
for some reason.
I saw that.
yeah,
Why
yeah,
would you do
Wild.
that?
man,
I
that
don't
was that
know.
was crazy. That was crazy. It's like, why would you do that?
Right?
But
People do stuff just cause. but but that's the thing though, right? It's a very flexible And Steam and Valve is like, all right, whatever, do what you want. Right? So Valve don't care.
Yeah, Valve was like, yeah, that's. I mean, if there was an open platform for, I mean, that you could just attribute for gaming, um, or poster child for an open platform for gaming, Valve is always, those guys have always been like that for Steam, and Steam is, I mean, it's like the holy grail for that. So, um, but we're going to get into our next topic here. We're going to, take a little bit of a break, so we can, run our ad and pay some bills figuratively. And then we're going to get into the topic that we talked about at the head and African Americans and the wealth gap. Stay tuned.
Yeah, baby, you know what time it is. Now let's get it started. Are you kidding me? Unreal!
While our HBCUs are mostly known for academic rigor, community, they also know how to turn up.
Does he have it? Yes, he does! And that might be the knockout punch.
All right, and we're back. And I posed a question at the very beginning of the show, and this is going to be this was the kind of the heavy topic that we wanted to kind of touch on before the show ended. Going into the new year, we see a lot of people really talking about African American issues. Obviously, it's African American History Month. But rather go down that path, I wanted to talk about something specific. And we talk a lot about the wealth gap in this country, and as it relates to African Americans. And the question I want to pose to the panel here is how, when, or if technology can help close the wealth gap. Now, this is a kind of a layered question, and I see Leslie chomping at the bit. I'm gonna have the disclaimer up just in case.
It's not negative. It's not negative. It's actually a working example of how technology is being used to close the gap. Personally, where I am,
Yeah,
it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I wanted to get both of you guys to give me some input before I kind of go on a little mini monologue here. So,
Ladies first.
yep,
what we've been
ladies first.
doing, well, Shreveport, Louisiana has been dealing with I guess you could say IT desert environment. It's not really, we're not known for tech jobs are not really here. The few that you have, you got to hold on to. It's also the same thing with internet access. What the city has been doing is we are working with the local libraries, and we're actually setting up, this might actually be pretty interesting to y'all too. We're using a company called SensaCap, and it's using LoRaWAN to boost their Wi-Fi signals so that homes that are near the libraries can attach to the library Wi-Fi from their homes. So nobody has to talk about, I can't do remote, like a kid misses school. We have another pandemic type situation where everything has to be remote, and people didn't afford internet or didn't want the $10 internet because it sucks. It doesn't do you no good. You might as well not have it. This way, as long as they have a library card, which is free to get, you can log on to the library's Wi-Fi and have decent internet in your home, and you wouldn't have to pay for it. So that's bridging that gap for people who are in low income areas. They have decent internet access that they don't have to pay an arm and a leg for, so that they can start to, like, if they want to do job applications or any other paperwork, or for whatever reason they are not able to work, if they want to find a job, you can stay home instead of having to find a way to get to the library. It's closer and it's easier. So it's helping to bridge the technology gap. It's going to make things better in the long run. It's for the betterment of the city, because we're not doing good here. Not even gonna start.
So two things. One, that's awesome. That's great. Number two, as a network engineer, I'm going to hit you up after this and try to figure out how they're doing that, because you have to have a crap ton of backhaul to do something like that.
I will explain the entire infrastructure. Apparently, I'm over it at some point. Oh, we gonna
Hey,
talk.
make that money. Make that money. But
I said I'm over
uh,
it.
but so I'll say I think that the rise of like smartphones and uh, social media for for good or bad, but particularly YouTube and TikTok, right, and Instagram to a degree, that has been a really big, like, it closes the gap so much because there been many people who have started successful YouTube channels and TikTok accounts, right, with just their smartphone, right? You don't even need a super expensive iPhone 14 Pro, right? You don't even need all that. You just need the phone that's in your pocket. You take it out, you do something cool or something that's trendy that people like, and you make bank, right? I mean, and I think that's been a really big um and streaming had like streaming, just content creation in general. But I think the main platforms like YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok, those three in particular have really kind of made it possible for people to pursue their dreams, to be successful in the tech space without without having to go big. I mean, one of the maybe the biggest tech YouTubers, Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD, right? If you've seen his first few videos when he was like 14, 13, 14, like he was using like his webcam on his computer or something like that, right? And now look at him, he's literally a millionaire, right? And so like I would say that's probably the big. I mean there are still gaps, right? There are still hurdles to kind of jump through, but I think in the last decade, right, that's really helped people, particularly right in the Black community, to kind of at least close the gap, right? That wage gap the wealth gap you were talking about, right? It's kind of helped people get more involved or get more kind of pursue what they want with a minimal investment, upfront investment.
It's also great for advertisers. I mean, you don't have to go into these model searches and this, that, and the third. Somebody could be like, oh, their Instagram has very nice pictures of them. Let's see if they want a model.
Right, exactly. You're right. That's how you get those Instagram deals, right? People,
Hmm.
brand deals and stuff like that. I
I
mean,
think for
it.
me,
No, go ahead. I was thinking about someone. Go ahead.
yeah, I think. Well, first, I think those are some awesome points. Um, I mean, we look at just social media by itself. That's one aspect of the type of technology that's turning um, people that don't have income into people that have six-figure incomes or five-figure incomes or things of that nature. Um, that's just one tiny aspect of um, of really positive things that come about with the interaction of technology. And I think Leslie really kind of hit some things on the head there in terms of how we can see technology, um, how we can see uh, technology is how we can use the integrative nature of it to really level the playing field. And I think a lot of times we talk about access to information. That's the first step, you know, and that's where technology can really play a big part, whether it's internet access for communities that don't have it or individuals, people that don't have it, um, access to hardware, access to platforms, um, training, you know, all of those things are really big tools to that effect, as well as the knowledge that goes along with it. As an IT pro, all of us are IT professionals. So we have to really, take a real step back and look at it through a very broad lens because a lot of things through the narrow lens of the field or the job that we're already in. So for me, I've had opportunities where I've worked as an instructor or a trainer. Matter of fact, a good example of this, a couple of years back, um, I was working in an after-school program in DC, in Washington D.C., right down the street from Howard and Shaw University neighborhood, teaching network security. and information security to kids. And it was really dope doing, because those kids that came in, that I would come into, at the church where I was doing the classes at, they would be grumbling about the rest of school the day, for the rest, of the day, until coming in there and learning about how to build computers, how to, protect computers from, whatever. And we would have conversations about, well, um, how can I use these skills to make money? And it was like, you have no idea. It's like, how, first question I got, from was from a seventh grader that asked me, how much money do you make working with computers? It's like, you really want to know? And he was like, yeah, I want to know. And I was just like, and he was like, and those are the types of things that I think technology could really be effective in changing mindsets and perspectives in terms of closing the gap. Now, mind you, we still have things structurally that a lot of folks have to deal with. Um, and that's it for that. I think that's something for a later podcast in terms of structural racism and things of that nature. And I want to do that podcast when when our President Militant is on the space. Shout out to Dom. We miss you, buddy. We need you to bring the Pan African flag with you as well. Thank you, appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's one of those things where we have to really think about affecting solutions now, particularly those of us that are, have our feet firmly entrenched in the technology spaces, whether it's the industry or working with technology or conveying and sharing information with people that want to get into the space or that want to utilize technology to enhance their own spaces and make money. So, that's something that I think is a very I think it's a very attainable goal. I think it's something that's a lot more attainable than, even just a decade ago.
So I think one thing I think I really enjoyed about what you just said is that uh your when you said that you taught people or the kids, right, network security, information security, was it like a black school, like a predominantly
Uh-huh.
black school? And
Yeah,
so
it was DC. It's an after school program for DC public schools. So
so I think the fact that they saw you, like a black man, teaching them, like I think that I don't know about you, like when I was younger, right? I think I can count on like one hand the number of black teachers I had, or black male teachers, right? And so I think like them seeing you doing something like that, I personally think that that would probably inspire a lot of them to get into tech. They're like, hey, if he can do it, right, I can do it. And to somewhat plug my own school. So TSU has a what is it called? Here, it's called the Smart Innovative Technologies Division. Basically, it's like a state of the art center or whatever to promote digital literacy, and provide education for technology skills, across like the spectrum of education. So they have like they have like this whole like center where they have like gaming PCs and VR headsets, and they teach people how to code and all that kind of stuff. In fact, they even got Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, to actually kind of vouch for him. But just stuff like that that people don't maybe they don't know HBCUs are doing that, right? There is a thriving esports program at many HBCUs, right? So
yes,
like, but people don't know that, or they might not know that. And I think like stuff that you're doing, right? I think that's really good. And stuff that we're doing as the Black Techies, I think that's something we can continue doing to kind of promote that digital, the literacy, becoming more well-rounded and STEM, right? And actually, I'm a band head, so I'm gonna say STEAM. I'm gonna add that A in there. Uh, but
yes, sir.
but I and I'll say this as the host emeritus and all that, whatever, right? That's what I genuinely want for us to going forward as Black Techies to be on the forefront of like spreading that technology knowledge and getting more Black people into technology, learning about technology, learning how to code. If you want to get into into tech, learn how to code. You might not actually use it, but it's a very excellent skill to have to fall back on. Hit me up if you have to want to know, or hit any one of us up if you want to know more about getting into tech. But yeah, I just wanted to say that
I
right quick.
got stuff.
Lots of stuff.
I've got lots of stuff.
Lots and lots of stuff. And
So much.
and I think on that note, man, we're gonna bring this episode to a close. Unfortunately, a brother, is doing double duty tonight. For those of you that are watching the podcast, hashtag HBCU Hoops Weekly will be doing a special edition tonight at 9 p.m. On Twitter Spaces. The folks at HBCU Nightly, HBCU Game Day, HBCU Sports, and yours truly, HBCU Digital Network. If you guys follow the spaces, we're always on. I do HBCU Weekly, and his crew, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, are part of the HBCU Nightly staff and space and contributors. So stay tuned to that. We're going to be checking out the Legacy Classic and talking about the conference races going into the tournament. As for the Black Techies, we will be covering a ton of stuff this year. A ton. So just bear in mind, this is only three members of the Phalanx that are the Black Techies podcast. We have Roberto Joseph, who's a Morehouse grad, AKA Beer Grills, and Dominique Bass, who's a Tennessee State product, AKA the Blackest Black Man, part of the podcast. So you'll be seeing a lot of us in multiple combinations as the year goes on. For all the HBC esports programs out there, hit us up because we are showcasing what you guys do. We want to put you guys front and center.
I know you're not gonna ignore my HBCU. I'm just saying.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, I know I'm a SWAC guy. I'm an Alabama State guy. But Leslie Moore, I would be remiss to say something about the Southern University Jaguars. Their basketball team is leading the SWAC right now. They're leading the conference. So, yeah, I got you. I got you, Leslie. I got you. If you were Jackson State, I would be saying.
I wouldn't ask. If I was Jackson State, I wouldn't ask.
Yeah, or Alabama,
Like,
or particularly Alabama A&M.
We're just gonna hit that.
But on that note, man, I want people to follow the Black Techies. Check us out on Twitter. Everybody that you see on the panel here right now, myself, Leslie, Dave, we have Twitter accounts. Check us out at the Black Techies Podcast on Twitter, on Facebook. Join the collective, the Black Techies Collective. All you need to do is do a search for it. We're there. Also, we will be sending out more information about our Patreon because, us poor folk got to fund this podcast. So,
WordPress ain't free.
Yes, it ain't free.
Domains ain't free.
Domains ain't free. Service space ain't free.
Yes,
right.
yes, man. Can you spare $1? So, but yeah, I mean, we'll be sending more information out about that as well as we're going to be adding some other features to the podcast as the year goes on. Specifically, we're going to add the ability to call into the podcast and interact with the hosts. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to be implementing that fairly soon. So that means folks that got common sense can call into the podcast. Folks that don't got common sense that call the podcast, y'all going to get dealt with. I already know how that's going to roll. But for everybody that's followed us in the past year or over the years since the existence of the Black Techies podcast, thank you very much. We appreciate your support. Your support is why we keep going. And on that note, we are out, man. Go ahead and eat your shrimp shack, bro. Because I'm about to go get something to eat before we go.
Hey man, go eat.
Peace out, everybody.
All right.
Hail Wakanda.
Hail Wakanda.